not really out. Yes, there it goes. Thank you, Lori. I see that it says recording in progress, so everything is working. Our annual meeting, I couldn't find minutes from a past annual meeting, so I decided to just wing it and do it my way. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to share my screen because I do have some slides and a lot to tell you about it. Not many slides, but a lot of information. I don't know if you're going to find out where we stand or not. I guess I hadn't looked at it from that perspective. Anyway, I am going to click share screen and never works for me, so hang in there. And I get to go find my PowerPoint, which is not working right. And I want to go back. Okay, see, it's not working the way I want it to. Never does. So you're getting them all. I'm just going to go through this whole thing. There. Oh, Lori needs to hold my hand.
Yeah, Karen, it looked like it got the share screen ended.
Yeah, and I want to go back. I had it all set up so it would be just perfect and it would be showing properly and all of those things. And of course, as soon as I try to do it, everything goes to pieces on me. There we go. See, I have a first slide. I'm very impressed with myself, even if nobody else is. Okay, this is our annual meeting. We are required to do that once a year. Traditionally, we've done it at the show, but when we don't have a show, we're sort of, oops, now what are we going to do? So what we're going to do is go through this whole thing and we'll talk about it. First of all, I do want to introduce our board of directors, but before we get into their actual names, I want to let people know that a lot of people don't really understand how the board of directors works. They just know there's this weird group that does stuff. So we are a working board. And what that means is that there are several positions with the responsibility to manage the various aspects of running the organization. Think of them as vice presidents of divisions within a corporation. Those areas are communications, education, membership, and operations. And each of those areas has 2 co-directors. Every year we elect a new co-director and keep the other one. They have a 2-year term, 1 year as the new person and 2nd year as the one who's supposed to know everything there is to know, which quite often is the case. They do know. So that way we have a system where that always assures that we have one co-director with at least 1 year of experience who can then provide some level of continuity to our day-to-day operations. Now, I'm going to introduce our current board of directors. However, I don't know how this is going to work, Lori, now that I've got the screen shared. I think I'm going to go back to undoing my share, if I can figure out how to do that, and introduce them by name. The board of directors, normally we have you stand up by your chair and wave at people, but because we can't have you do that, I'd appreciate it if you guys would just say something so that the screen, so that your face appears on the screen. People can. So our first person is Mary Tagg, and Mary is our president. She has been our president-elect, and now she is our current president and will continue through October or through September 30th of 2022. Our past presidents are Linda Wines and myself, and our responsibility is to hold the annual meeting, which we are doing. Our treasurer is Mickey Piney. She can't be with us today. She has a job. She actually earns real money. Our secretary is Merle Pratt.
Oh,
Why, there she is. Oh God, somebody actually responded. Thank you, Merle.
okay.
Now, for those co-director positions in education, we have Lori Klinkhammer.
That's me.
That's Lori, and Laura Nagel is her cohort. Laura is with family in South Carolina or in the Carolinas somewhere, much better than here looking rain. Membership is Ellen Wold and Kathy Simon Frank. Our Kathy,
Kathy's muted.
it's not Kathy. I know she's there. I saw her earlier. And communications is currently just Peggy Stockwell. We currently have a co-director. Yep. And there's Peggy. And she's very nice. I don't know why people aren't.
I could use the help.
Yes, we need the help, that's for sure. Operations is Aileen Lively and Donna Raquette. And Donna,
Hello.
there's Aileen. And Donna is busy doing something with a golf tournament. So I hope she's not going to get hit by lightning out there. Okay, that is our current board. And now we're going to move on to where we're coming with our upcoming board. And that, oh, this thing is so much fun. Share it. There we go. Okay. This brings me to something that is problematical for us, actually. If you haven't noticed, we haven't had an election for a new board. And that is because we don't have people to run for all the positions. The terms begin on October 1st, 2021, which means that we are running short on time here, folks. We still have positions where no one has been nominated or stepped forward to run for office. We could have an election with just write-ins for the open positions, but we all know Mickey Mouse is probably not available at this time. Besides, we believe someone should be asked before their name is added to the ballot. Those of us responsible for nominating people to serve on the board of directors have actually been surprised. In the past, our nominations were pretty much limited to the people who would be able to drive to the MQ office for meetings and to transact their job duties. COVID taught us that business could be managed just fine and dandy, thank you, using the tools that the internet provides. And those of us doing the nominations thought, oh, this is great because people can still serve if they live in Arizona in the winter, or on the other hand, we're snowbound in International Falls for 8 months each year. At any rate, we figured that we would have more people who would want to take advantage, who had wanted to be involved for a long time, and now would. So at any rate, we still need people to step forward and be nominated, and preferably by someone else. We need a co-director.
We're supposed to keep getting more.
We need it back.
We need a okay, somebody needs to be muted. We need someone to be a communications co-director with Peggy, and as she said, she needs help. We need, for a 2-year term, we need a co-director for operations with Donna Raquette. And we find, oh, where I lost track of my notes. Yeah, operations, co-director, operations, communications, and we also need a president-elect. President-elect is a 3-year term. I find this one to be probably one of the easier jobs on the board. It's important, but it's not nearly as much work because basically it's a 3-year commitment. The first year, you're sort of learning to be president. You kind of hang out and do a couple of, I think your responsibilities are to see that we get a scholarship winner and a few things like that. The second year, you are the president. And the third year, you are past president and you just act as an advisor to the president and president-elect. I've served for over 10 years on the board of directors, and I can tell you that the president-elect position with a 3-year term was probably the easiest until, of course, the pandemic hit. Yeah. And even that wouldn't have been such a big problem. Now that we have been through one and know what to do and how to handle it, whoever comes along, we get another pandemic, man, you guys got it covered. If you're willing to help us out over the next 2 to 3 years, please go to Sign Up Genius and put your name down. This only shows an interest, doesn't make you automatically have the job. Or if you want to call the office during business hours, Deborah will be happy to tell you about things and help you get listed. And by the way, did you know there's actually a reward for serving on the board? For each year served, you receive a free MQ membership. And this kicks in when you file your fiscal year report with the MQ office. So that covers that part of it. Now we get down to the nitty gritty of the actual annual report. And that's always kind of weird. The annual report currently covers the term of the president's year. In this case, our annual report is covering the time frame from October 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2020. That's Linda's and my term as co-president. It's so weird because we are, it's just a long time before we get around to getting to an annual report. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. The thing is 12 or more pages. It's, you can read it. We have full copies available. They're on the MQ website. You can find it by going to mnquilt.org, clicking on the drop down, clicking on the About word drop down menu, and just select annual report and it pops up. We also sent you a link in the Thursday Thimbleful on August 5th. And there's also a chat. I believe Lori put the link in the chat for this particular meeting so people can find it. If you have an urge to read it, please go through it, whatever you want. The kind of financial information is a separate link under the treasurer's portion of the report. And that gets into all the nitty gritty financial details. And I know there are some people who just love those and all they do to me is make my head hurt. So, and they explain to me what it says. And then it's sort of like me remembering the name of a flower. If it's not a rose, I'm dead. Same thing with numbers. We acquire this annual report because at the end of their term or each year, when we do the changeover at the beginning of October, every board member position is required to send in an annual report. And that is how you get your membership granted to you. Turn in the report and you get your reward. The question always comes up, why, if the year ends on September 30th, why are we now at the beginning of August before we get around to reporting on that? I mean, 8 months, 10 months later, 11 months later, what's the deal? Part of it has a lot to do with the financial data. We need to get that completed, audited, taxes submitted. And of course, the government being the government, you can't file your taxes at the end of your fiscal year, September 30th. No, you have to wait till January 1st to file. And then about the time you're ready to file, our bookkeeper tells us they change a bunch of rules and she has to redo it. No surprise about that. So we get this backup thing going on. And I guess we all know that once you get into having things approved and audited, things just happen and they take a while. Okay, now why am I bothering to tell you all this background about why it's the timing? It's because people call the office and say, why isn't there any information after September 30th in the annual report? And it's now 8-9 months later. But we need, so I'm telling you all this so you know why it's not there, okay? As I said, they're available on the website, financial information. If you have questions about the finances, send an email to our treasurer at treasurer@mnquilt.org. And I'm sure Mickey will be more than happy to help you by answering your questions and sorting out what's going on and all of that. Okay, now, what actually happened that year that Linda and I were co-presidents? We, in case you've forgotten or slept through it. It was kind of a awful time, to put it mildly. Linda and I took the job as co-presidents because both of us like to wander off places, and especially in the winter when it's cold. And we figured, well, if two of us were doing it, then we can kind of cover each other. You know, if Linda wants to be in Florida, or I want to go to Texas, you know, whatever, we could be backups to each other. And we also knew the duties were fairly light. We held meetings, set up minutes, signed some checks once in a while, had a staff meeting the Wednesday after the board meeting to bring the staff up to speed on decisions. And we had a complete staff and no one was threatening to quit. So life was pretty good. And we were just lollygagging around having a fine old time. And then came March. And suddenly, out of the blue, we were locked down, quarantined, frantically making masks, mostly walking around looking like we'd been hit with a pole axe or something. And our records show that we had 3 emergency board meetings in April of that year. And at the time, we hadn't even heard of Zoom, for God's sakes. What was that about? You know, how do you do this? It was just weird. And many thanks, as a side, to Lori for sorting all of this out for us. So member meetings had to be canceled. No idea as to how or what we could do to replace them. We had to, in May, it became, in April, it also became obvious that we were not going to be holding a 2020 show at a convention center. What looked like it would be 2 weeks and then we'll all be back to whatever. Nope, not happening. Hold on, I'm gonna just take that off the hook.
Call from Twin Cities, NN.
There, I killed it. Okay. It wasn't a cell phone, so I couldn't turn it off. Okay. Okay. Anyway, so we had to cancel the show. And now what do? We wound up having to refund well over $100,000 in registration fees from sponsors, vendors, and registrants for classes that had been sent to us. And as you can imagine, that took a little hit to our treasury. And we had to renegotiate contracts with St. Cloud, Duluth, Rochester. Fortunately, they were kind enough to understand that they were in the same boat we were and were very, very good to us about it. We did find in May that we were eligible for the federal grants for small businesses, and our bookkeeper worked diligently and treasurer worked diligently to get us those grants. So we were able to pay our staff, who were all working at home at this time. We got the money, we paid our staff, and later in, I don't exactly remember the date, but it was in the past year, we got a second grant to help us keep the salaries paid. And then comes late August, and it becomes very obvious that I believe it was Duluth who told us that we could have 50 people in the convention center at a time. They said rooms and whatever. What it boiled down to was 50 people. And they couldn't wait around in the lobby. They had to wait outside. I don't know about you, but waiting outside in Duluth, it could be lovely. On the other hand, it could be 40 degrees with the wind off that lake that gave you a wind chill of 20 below. So we thought, well, that's not going to work. So we had a choice. We could wait and tough it out, hopefully be able to use the convention center, or we could come up with something else, and we decided to go to the virtual show. We had no clue how we were going to do it, but by gum, we were going to have a show, no matter how or what. And we did. And now about the show. This isn't part of the annual report. This gets into the things that, like people want to know, like what's really going on. The questions are, did we make any money? We almost broke even. We're within a few $1,000s of breaking even. And considering everything we did, it's amazing that we managed that. Now, I had told them that we were going to make millions of dollars because people from all over the world were going to come. And Linda said, we're lucky to get 50. So as it turned out, we had a very good turnout. People enjoyed the show. It wasn't as good as an in-person show, but hey, it was better than anything else out there that week. Okay, we did, and we stayed within our budget, which is an amazing thing with any show, to stay within your budget. Next question is, would we do it again? Yep, if we had to. We now know how to do it. It would probably be easier to put it on virtually than it is to do an in-person show. We found that there are a lot of things we didn't have to do that we would have to do for an in-person show. Do we want to? Nope, no way. We came as close as possible to an in-person experience. But quilters are a tactile bunch. We need to stroke fabric. We need to touch things. We need to poke at the newest notion. We need to learn about new techniques and then talk with our friends and say, they did what? Huh? There's always that when we see a new way of doing stuff. And then there's checking out the latest notions. I think that's one of our favorite parts. I'll bet many of you have things in your sewing room that you saw at a show. They look like the slickest things since sliced bread, and you could hardly wait to hand them the money and take it home. And it's sitting pretty much where you put it down when you got home. You might have tried it once or twice. Now, on the other hand, I will admit there are some tools that I would kill if somebody tried to take them away from me. But we all enjoy the pleasure of trying them out and seeing how they work. The other thing we found, people ask, well, okay, so what's this going to do for our future shows? We've discovered a lot of good things. We've learned that we could do Zoom classes. We've discovered that there's a whole batch of teachers out there that teach online, strictly online, that we weren't even really actually aware of before this happened. We can do a combination show where we have in-person classes, but we can also offer things for people who, for whatever reason, can't drive to the venue, but still want to be involved. We've learned a lot. We got a lot of good tools that we can use for the future, and we know how to use them. We have groups of people now who are trained to manage Zoom meetings. There's a long list of good things that came out of this. Now, would I say that we would have done the virtual show just to learn about the good things? No, not. No way. Okay, last of all, thanks. We always have our wonderful cadre of volunteers who step up. Our members are absolutely great, except apparently for being on the board of directors. But we found pluses this year, special pluses that we need to thank people for. When we had to refund registration fees, a tremendous number of people said either, oh, just keep the fee, use it to run the business, or roll it over, I'll do something next time. So that meant we didn't have to write a check or give them a credit, which kept money in our bank account that we could really use in our bank account. We had vendors and sponsors who rolled over their donations and their booth fees so that we could continue to operate and that they would take part in a future show. The convention centers were awesome with their willingness to renegotiate contracts. not require that we send them another batch of deposits. Just a whole bunch of really good things. Those things happened during Linda's and my term. And then in 2020, in late 2020, Mary Tagg is our president-elect. She'd been pursuing grants and finding out what we had to do to get grants. And then she put together a fund drive, which generated far more income than we had ever hoped to get, which helped tremendously for getting us through the end of the year finances. The people who really need to be thanked, and a lot of them are no longer with us, are the people who saw the importance of setting up an investment plan. At some point in our past history, a board of directors said, look, we've got extra money in the checking account. It's not earning any money. And if we have money, we should be using it to earn money. And they set up an investment plan. And as time went by and we became a 501(c)(3), it became obvious that we should have enough in our investments so that we could manage to keep the doors open and run the business, the MQ organization, for at least 6 months. And boards over the years have upped that. 6 months is the minimum. And that investment plan, quite frankly, is what saved us. If we had not had those funds tucked away, happily earning interest, we would have had to say, we're out of here. Sorry, folks, it's been fun. No more Minnesota Quilters. So I want you all to, I don't know who these people were who had the vision to do this, but whoever they are, they deserve a special thanks from every single Minnesota Quilters member. This was, this really was saved us. And it wasn't, we did not have to spend all that money. That's the important part too. We were able to take some out, but we didn't have to totally decimate it. So we could probably make it through another pandemic. Don't want to, but we could probably do it. Okay, now I'm sure all of you have questions and I've been babbling. So let's go back to this. And if you have questions, I'm going to ask Lori to help me with this because she can spot people better than I can, I think, on these screens. So
exactly, and it will also be very helpful if you use the reaction and of Zoom and raise your hand. Then I can actually find you to spotlight you even faster. Or if you have your video on and you wave your hand, we are all on one screen right now with 43 people attending.
Lori, they're all asleep.
Well, and you're going to have to unmute yourself because I had to keep muting people because there was background noise.
Yes.
Your little microphones were dancing.
If you've ever seen Lori's screen, we have a list, there's a list of people there, and yes, the little microphones are next to your name and they just pop up and they twinkle and they do all kinds of things. Okay. So.
Okay, looks like Brenda has a question.
All right, dear.
Not a question, but another person to thank, and that's you, Karen and Linda. One thing that you did not mention is that you had to make the hard decision to lay off the show director. And the two of you stepped in and did that job without pay. And I think that is tremendous, and you need to be acknowledged for that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I don't know where Linda's face is, but I'm sure she's happy too. So they haven't seen me in the office for 6 weeks now. I mean, maybe once or twice for an hour, but not long. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, Rose, you had your hand up, but I think now it's down.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm just doing the applause.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I second Brenda. You guys have given us immeasurable volunteer service and really, really competent leadership. Thank you.
Well, you guys were a tough act to follow too. Okay, right now, I think it looks like everybody is just dying to get to the real meeting and enjoy themselves. So stay tuned, folks. You will be seeing something about the elections. If you know of anybody, or if you decide yourself that, hey, this group would be great fun to be around, we will be doing meetings via Zoom. Once we get to live, they may be live, but not all will be live. From what I understand, we're going to try to continue to embrace those people who can't physically get to the Recovery Church in St. Paul. So think about it. It's a lot of fun, actually. Oh, okay, go for it. It's all yours, Loretta.